So S3 is simple storage service, which is used to store the objects into the AWS cloud. It means that you can store any kind of objects. Objects, what do you mean by object first? Object in the sense, the characteristics. It means that it can be a PDF file. A PDF file will have a name and the text in it. It can be a MP3 file. It can be a MP4 file. It can be a TXT file. It can be any form of can be stored over there. So there is no restrictions that you can store only PDFs, that you can store only TXT files or MP4 files, MP3 files. No, you can store any form of files or the objects into the S3 bucket. S3 bucket major use cases in real-time world to store the logs of the different AWS services. For that, we will be using the S3 bucket, and to store large file contents in the sense like it can be a MP4 or MP3 or any huge volumes of data. So that can be stored over here. But we can host our static website into the S3 bucket also. S3 bucket will have buckets, objects, permissions, owners, and policies are the few important terminologies that we can say. Objects means the things that we are going to store. Buckets means it's a container which will have the objects. Okay, so it is a container which will store the objects. And permissions. So we will assign the permissions to the S3 bucket. Who can access what, whether which person can put the data, which person can get the data, and who can write the data, who can execute the things. So that is what the permissions. Owner of the bucket, what permissions he have, and he is the person who will provide the permissions to the other peoples. And policies means, permissions. So permissions in the sense, owner will provide the permissions via policies. So now let's go and create a bucket and let's see what are the other objects that we are having here. S3, I will service that we are going to select. So we will select the S3. Later, we will create, so this is the main dashboard where you will have total storage and object count and what is the average object size. And then this is the matrix of the S3 bucket. Click on create bucket, and then I'll select Mumbai region. Bucket name. So remember that the bucket name should be, this bucket name should be unique globally. So what we will say, and also make sure that you don't have any capital letters. If you see here, access control list, ACLs. So by default, it will be disabled so that we can provide the permissions via policies. So that is also recommended. We will keep it as it is. And block public access. Nobody can access our objects from the internet by default. So that is why we are blocking all the accesses. Clear? And then later on, we will see how we will provide the read-only access to the public. Bucket versioning means you are going to one object, and if you upload the same object with the same name, it is going to keep a backup of the older object. Tags, if you want, you can have the tags. Server-side encryption means it will automatically encrypt the data which is going to store in the S3 bucket. Object lock means if you uploaded one file, you can't overwrite that, you can't edit that, you can't do any other operations apart from the read operation. Create the bucket. My bucket is created, and if you see here, this is what my